Hello there, I'm Cafe Khan and welcome back to my Android tutorials. In the previous video, we used shared preferences to store the login credentials. In today's video, we'll be using SQLite to store the login credentials, and for that, we're gonna use a room persistence library. Room is a library which provides us with an abstract layer over SQLite DB to access the database. It has three major components: a database class, this defines our database; an entity class, this represents our table in the database; and third, a DAO class, a database access object. Here we define all the CRUD operations, which are create, read, update, or delete. So let's get started. We're going to use the same project which we used in the previous video so that we can compare shared preferences and local DB. And as you can see here, it's the same project, same sign up activity, username, password, confirm password, and same login activity. Username, password, login, and sign up. So let's get started. So as I told you, Room has three major components. So let's start with the database class first. So project, Java, a project directory, right click, new, package. Let's call this package DBUtils. Why are we creating this package? So that we can create all our database related stuff in one package. Okay, let's create the database class. Right click, new, Java class. So let's call it local DB. So the OK button. Class is created. And to use Room, we have to add two dependencies. So let's add those first. So coming to our Gradle. As you can see, we've got two Gradle files. One is the project Gradle and one is the application Gradle. So we're going to add the dependencies in application Gradle. And as you can see here, this is the dependency block. Here we add the dependencies, whether it's some Google SDK or it's some third-party SDK. So let's add Room over here. So implementation, Android dot architecture, persistence, Room, runtime, and version, which is 1.0.0. Similarly, let's add the second dependency. So annotation processor, again, Android dot architecture dot persistence dot room colon compiler and version 1.0.0. Let's sync the Gradle now. Well, the Gradle sync, that means Room is ready to use. So let's just close this file. So coming back to our local DB class. So to tell Room that this is the database class, we need to annotate with @database. So @database, and this requires two parameters, entities and version. So let's provide that, entities and version. Let's call the version first. And as you can see, I've put entities as empty. So let's define an entity first. So again, coming back, DBUtils, new, Java class. Let's call it user. Again, to tell the Room that this is an entity, we need to annotate it with @entity. So @entity. So let's define a model first. So in our model, we will be having a user ID field, a username, and a password. So let's define those. So private, int, UID, similarly private, string, username, and similarly for password. So private, string, password. So we've defined the model. Let's convert it into Room entity. We've already given the annotation entity, and for this to be our table's primary key, so let's annotate that as @primary key. And I want this to increase every time I make an entry in the table. So auto increment. So we just got to write auto generate true. Similarly, for username, let's say @column info. So at the rate column info, let's define the column name. So name, let's say username. Similarly for password. So column info, name, and column name, password. Okay, so let's define the getter and setters for these. So Alt enter, create getter setter. Similarly, Alt enter, create getter setter, and same goes for password. So our user entity is ready. So coming back to our local DB, let's provide the entity here. So which was user.class. And for this class to be a room database, we need to extend it as room database. So let's do that. Extends room database. And this class needs to be abstract. So let's do that. Public abstract class. This class needs a DAO class. So let's define user DAO now. So project, DB new Java class. So this would be user DAO, and this would be an interface. Let's hit the OK button. For this to be a DAO class, we need to annotate it as @DAO, @DAO. And as I told you earlier, this is a class where we define all our CRUD operations. So in our case, we will be needing to create a user and to get the user. So let's do that. So for create, we will be needing insert. So let's define a function for that. Say void create user, and let's pass user over here in the parameters. So user, and we need to annotate this as @insert. Similarly to get, let's define a function. It will return a user. So user get user by username. Let's define the parameters, string username. Similarly, we'll annotate this with @query. So @query. So select all from, my table name is user. So user where, and column name is username, where username like, and colon username. Let's change the name of this username because it's a little confusing. So let's call it str username, and let's use it here. So whatever parameter we pass here in this function will be used here in the query. Okay, so we are done with our DAO class. So coming back to local DB. So let's use it here. So public abstract user DAO and user DAO, and our DB class is ready to go. So two things to remember about room persistence library. First, the database instance is a costly operation. So that's why we define it as a singleton so that we don't have to create multiple instances. And to define singleton, the best place to define is the application class. So let's create an application class now. So project or package new Java class. Let's call it room implementation, the same as our application, just to avoid any confusion. You can call it anything you want. Room implementation. Let's hit the OK button. So why do we create an application class? First, our case, that to define singleton. Second, if we require a variable which is accessed throughout the application, we define such variables here. And third, there are a lot of third-party applications which need to be initialized before any other component of the application. So that's why we initialize those third-party SDKs in the application class. Okay, so let's define this. And to define an application class, we need to extend it as application. So extends application. Let's define the instance variable. So private room implementation, and let's call it m-instance. Let's create the onCreate function. And let's initialize the instance. So m-instance is equal to this. And to fetch this instance, we'll need a function. So let's define that. So public room implementation get instance, and this would return my m instance, that is my application instance. Okay. So our application class is ready to go. So let's implement the room database here. So let's define a variable for that. So private local DB. Let's call it DB instance. And let's initialize it here. So DB instance is equal to room dot database builder and get application context. Let's pass the database class. So local DB dot class, and let's define our database name. Let's call it local DB. Okay, and let's hit the build function. So our local DB instance is created. So to use that, we're going to create another function. So let's call it, say, public and local DB get DB instance. This would return DB instance. And room implementation, this needs to be static. And so does this. Okay, so our application class is ready and we've implemented our DB instance. So now coming back to our sign up activity. As you can see, we've used shared preferences here to store our credentials. So let's comment this code. Now coming to the second point which I was telling you about room. Second is, for all these DAO functions, we need to run them on a separate thread because these are heavy operations and Android won't let it run on the main thread. So for that, let's create a new thread. So new thread, new runnable, and store. Okay. So inside this thread, let's create an instance of our DB. So local DB, say DB instance is equal to, so we'll call our application class room implementation get instance and get DB instance. And we also need to define our implementation application class in the manifest. So coming back to our manifest, let's provide the application class here. So name dot room implementation. That's it. So coming back to the sign up activity. So now that we've got our database instance, we just need to call a create user function. So for that, let's call DB instance dot user DAO create user. This needs a user model, so let's create that. So user okay. We need to import, so Alt plus enter. Let's set the values. So user dot set username, and our username is present here as str username. So str username. Similarly for password, so user dot set password. So str password. Our user model is ready. So let's just pass it to create user function. Okay, so that was all to create the user. So we'll need to fetch it in the login activity. So coming back to the login activity. So this is where we have our shared preferences. So let's comment that. Again, we'll be needing a database instance. So let's create that. Local DB, let's call it DB instance. Again, application class, so room implementation, get instance, get DB instance. And as I told you, for all these DAO actions and functions, we'll need to run those on separate threads. So let's create a separate thread, new thread, new runable. Let's start. Let's put this inside this. Okay, so we've got our database instance. Let's get the user from the DB. So for that, say user is equal to, and we need to import this, so alt enter. So DB instance, user DAO, and get user by username. So our username is username from ed, so let's pass it here. And let's define it before this code block. Okay. We gotta define this as final because we're using it in an internal class. Great. So now that we've fetched user from the local DB, we gotta use it to compare with the current username and password. So let's put this code block inside. Okay. So instead of this str username, let's make it user if user is not equal to null, and user.get username. Similarly, for password, user.get username. Okay, this is sorted. Similarly for password, so coming here, so user.get password, and same goes here. So user.get password. Okay, we need to define this as final. Okay, so our code is ready. Just one more thing. All these UI actions like creating a toast or alert, these need to be done on the main thread. So we have to run this on a main thread. So let's define that. Okay, so let's just call run on UI thread, new runable, and let's put our toast inside. Similarly for this other toast, so run on UI thread, new runable, and let's put this inside. And the same goes for the last one. So run on UI thread, new runable, and again let's put this inside, and we're ready to go. So let's build our application and see what happens. Okay. The application is building, so let's wait. Okay, let's run Wiser to project our screen. Okay, so our application is running. Let's hit the sign up button. Let's create a new user, so let's call it Cafe, and let's give the password, say 12345. 45. Same, confirm password, so 12345. Let's hit the create user button. Well, our user is created, so let's try logging in. So Cafe, let's give the password 12345. Login. It says login successful. Let's try changing it. So QAIF, so login. It says login failed. So that means we created a user, we stored it in the local DB, and we fetched that user on the basis of username. That's all for SQLite using Room Persistence Library. If you have any doubts, any queries so far, feel free to drop a comment and we'll get through them. Okay? So, see you in the next video.